I think one thing I would say, sir, is that over the course of my career, because the presidents of the United States have been increasingly unwilling to use U.S. military power to effect, they use it very temperately. They don't think they can win wars anymore with it. The price of that has been an increased use of covert action, whether it's by special forces in the military or by the CIA. And by its nature, that falls into kind of a secretive, dirty war category. And so I think we end up doing things, when you don't do the hard things, I think, sometimes you end up doing the extreme things. It's hard to win a war. And if you don't do that, you end up still having to defend America, but you try to do it in another way, whether it's renditions or some other kind of covert action program. So I think what we're seeing is the tradition of American presidents in the last 3 administrations to increasingly use covert action. And the problem is it can be effective in a very small scale, but it can't defend America by itself. It has to be complemented by something else, whether it's military, public diplomacy, economic policy, whatever it is. But for my own 2 cents worth, I've never looked at foreign policy as something that defines what America is. It defends what America is. And foreign policy is to make sure that the scope and the area of liberty and freedom, of equality of condition at home expands, not overseas. I have no qualm about doing whatever the president orders as long as it's legal to defend the United States.
So in what we get after 9/11 is this program that you've just described being sort of out there and morphing into something that was very different and that could then pose a threat to who we are.
Well, it was different in degree, certainly. After 9/11, Richard Betts from Columbia has written that only in America could the U.S. military not be prepared to defend the United States proper. After 9/11, the CIA was about the only game in town. The Bush White House pushed on the CIA to accelerate the rendition program. Under Mr. Clinton, we had focused on very senior Al Qaeda people. That went down a little bit. The bar went down a little bit, and we began to pick other people up. In addition, we also began holding people, which has always been odd to me. I would have thought that the Human Rights Committee community would rather have Americans holding people than the Egyptians, but apparently not. And for some reason, the Bush administration thought we would be better at interrogating than other people. So we began doing that. I think the real problem was that we didn't take advantage of the international agreements that were out there. I believe we're at war with these people. These are not criminals. These are not gangsters. These are prisoners of war. We should have treated them as such. We put them in a stockade like we did Germans and Japanese, let the Red Cross in, and let them write letters to their mom, all of that stuff. And I think that would have saved America a lot of grief. But really, sir, the real issue here is, for the first time in Western history, we're fighting an enemy that we have prisoners of war we probably can never release. Because of their religious motivation, if we release them, they will go back to what they were doing beforehand. And we've had close to 4 dozen people that were released from Guantanamo that we have either killed on the battlefield in Iraq or Afghanistan or recaptured after their initial release. So a problem for the Western community is, what do we do with these people? But so far we haven't discussed that at all.
And should they be put in our court system, or should there be new international protocols to deal with them?
Well, I think there's going to have to be the latter, sir. When we set up the program in '95, the Department of Justice was very clear that the American court system could not accommodate them. The CIA has never physically grabbed someone. The rendition program is finding a target in a country where the country's government will arrest him and then deliver him to a third country that wants him for judicial processes. that's the way the system works.
Originally.
Originally.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, again, that's a very, very limited way to defend America. And I don't think it's a particularly, it was never designed, let me say, it was never designed to be the U.S. counterterrorism program. It was designed to complement the efforts of all the other departments. It's turned out to be the only U.S. government counterterrorism program that's been effective, and increasingly less effective because now it's become a political football.
Mm-hmm. Earlier, I thought you were suggesting that really torture may not work, basically, because, for example, Al Qaeda was training its people to essentially give information that wasn't useful, or not give any information.
And also, they train them very clearly that you can become a martyr on the battlefield or in a Saudi, Egyptian, or an American jail. Mm-hmm. I was never one who thought it was worth paying much attention to interrogating people. Now, General Hayden, who's now the chief of CIA, has said that they've acquired very important information through what they call enhanced interrogation techniques. I'm not in a position to know to disprove that. So I think if General Hayden says that that's the case, then that's probably exactly what's going on at the moment, that we are getting important information from the prisoners that we have captured. Mm-hmm. But I'm not one that thinks interrogations bring you an awful lot.
Let's get back to your argument about American elites, because what you're saying is that their myopia, which comes from their arrogance, from the atavisms left from the Cold War, from their conceptual errors, for example, the enemy is a nation state, it's Iraq, it's not a terrorist group, that all of these things, including, by the way, your argument that they want to put things off because they're focused on their political situation and the electoral process and so on. That all of these things, problems lead our elites to essentially go after the wrong instruments, basically, in dealing with the problem.
I think that's very much the case, sir, and especially the latter. The political process has pervaded everything. There is no discussion of how best to defend America without having two opposing partisan views. There's no united approach to it. And if there's a touch of genius in bin Laden, and I think there is that he's identified U.S. foreign policies as an attack on Islam, and that set of foreign policies is inextricably bound up with American domestic politics. Israel, a martyrdom operation is at hand for any American politician who criticizes Israel or questions the value of the relationship.
You mean political martyrdom.
Political martyrdom. No politician that we've encountered yet has been willing to run on the platform of we need to make sure we're energy self-sufficient, and so prices have to go up. No one in any of the political parties is willing to say, we're going to spend the lives of your sons and daughters so the Saudi government family can continue to steal the profits from their people and put them in banks in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. So it's a very difficult situation, but we haven't found a politician who's willing to address the issue. And it's not that this is hard to understand, Doctor. If this was rocket science, it wouldn't come from me. This is very apparent. And I've never thought of our politicians as being stupid. They see it as well as I see it, or you see it, or anyone sees it. But they don't have the moral courage to say, listen, to Americans, if you want this war is about what we do. We need, as a nation, as a community, to decide if we want to continue doing this, fine, but this is what it's going to cost. But there's no one out there except Mr. Paul tried to raise it during the campaign, and he was identified as a traitor or an anti-American.